So now I want to walk you through some statistics that the USDA issued in 2008 so that you can begin to understand um, the magnitude of this problem in the United States. So in 2008, the USDA issued a report that stated that 49 million people live in households that are considered to be food insecure. 14 million children are in this situation, which is 19% of all children under the age of 18 are considered poor and are the largest percentage of any other age group to exist in this food insecure situation. 21% of the related children under the age of 6 in families lived in poverty. So it's important to again reiterate that children are a very, very vulnerable group and population when we look at food insecurity in the United States. So to continue on that trend, again, children continue to be the poorest age group and most affected by hunger. Research shows that children who experience severe hunger in childhood have higher levels of chronic illness. You can imagine why. If your body isn't getting the nutrition that it needs, your immune system is suppressed, and so then you're more likely to get sick. These children suffer from anxiety and depression and tend to have more behavioral problems. If you can think to your college days or into your classes now, when you forget to eat breakfast or you have class goes long and it goes into your lunch, how anxious or cranky you feel. I know that when I was in college, I felt that way, and it was difficult to concentrate in class. But if you think of a 6-year-old that's in that same situation but is chronically hungry, every day they go to school hungry, the only meal that they get is school lunch, how that would affect their ability to perform in the classroom, their ability to concentrate, and also because they're more prone to sickness and illness, they're going to miss more days of school. They're going to have to kind of be in this constantly behind state. So you can see how these issues are interlinked. When we look at the elderly population, about 10% of all Americans 65 and over, or 4 million elderly, are considered poor in the U.S. When we look at this by demographic, the poverty rate for non-Hispanic whites was only about 8%, whereas instead for blacks 25%, 22% for Hispanics, and 10% for Asians. So you can see great discrepancy in demographic group related to the hungry poor here in the United States. When we look at the poorest of the poor, or the worst off households here in the U.S., that number is actually increasing. In 2005, it was about 10.8 million families. In 2006, it was about 11 million families. But in 2008, it reached a pinnacle of 12.5 million families that were considered in the worst off household category. This increase in number of people is consistent with other studies that the Census Bureau has performed about poverty data, which shows that while America, our economy, overcoming the latest recession, has been growing, the poorest of the poor continue to grow in number. So there is this, essentially we're creating a vacuum of our middle class, so we're moving more people into this poverty level. As people are becoming richer and richer and richer, there's this widening gap that's being created in our society. And when we look at these poorest of the poor, 22% of them are black, and 20% of Hispanic households experience this food insecurity that I've been talking about at far higher rates than the national average. So again, there is a demographic discrepancy in these populations. In the U.S., hunger costs American about $90 billion a year. The 10 states with the highest food insecurity, if you remember back to the map that I showed you, those 10 states were Mississippi, New Mexico, Texas, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Utah, Louisiana, Arkansas, Kentucky, Alabama, and Arizona. So again, those darker shaded states. About 11% of all households in these regions are food insecure. Again, there's pockets of hunger and poverty. In a minute, I'm going to show you a map that goes county by county, and so you're actually able to see more clearly where these people actually live. And one of the alarming facts is that about a quarter of all the food that is produced in the U.S. Is actually lost or thrown away. So from farm to table, food either spoils in the grocery store or, back in the 50s we taught children the Clean Plate Club. Now if you go to a school, you'll see children throwing away thousands of pounds of food each year. So, if you think to your own refrigerator, how much of the food in that refrigerator do you actually eat versus throw away? It's alarming the rate of food that is wasted and lost here in the U.S. When compared to the number of people that we have in the U.S. that are food insecure and hungry. When we talk about hunger and poverty, it's important to note that these two facts are intrinsically linked. Living below the poverty line puts tremendous strains on a household, and it gives families barely enough money to purchase healthy enough and nutritious foods, and then also remembering that they still have to pay for things like rent, health care, school fees, gas for their car, maybe a car payment. So people are existing at these very minimal income levels and having to pay for the same number of things that you and I have to pay for. And nutritional research shows that as income goes down, the nutritional adequacy of a household's diet also goes down. You also see when income level goes down, as Professor Coots pointed out, people spend a higher percentage of their income on food. So not only is their income lower, but they're having to spend more percentage of that income on food. And so it's a catch-22. And the main idea of all of this is for you to understand as a student that hunger and poverty are very intimately linked, and you can't talk about hunger without talking about poverty and the effects of poverty.